we do have Zap up next with Jack Mullers.
Yep, fantastic. Hedging the chain. Thanks, Jack.
I don't know. If I do, oh, sorry. I'm good? Yo, I'm going to pace. I'm going to walk around. What's up, everyone? My name is Jack. I started Zap. First, before I get started, I really want to emphasize how thankful I am to be here. I'm coming up on 3 years of downloading L&D and trying Lightning for the first time. And if someone were to tell me that I'd be on stage at a conference 3 years ago, I would have thought you were insane. So I know in this industry, we all have a lot of pressure and expectations and time preferences always now, but maybe this conference is a good time. Everyone should be really, really proud. This is a really big accomplishment, and I'm so proud to be here. So, yeah. Cool, yeah, so I appreciate the kind words, Des, that was dope. I like the look of my wallet too. But I'm actually not gonna talk about it. There's so many wallets now, and I didn't wanna have a repetitive talk. I think people are familiar with Zap at this point and the color of our button. And this Olympus thing is pretty cool, and you can always DM me on Twitter or Slack or whatever, and I'll answer any questions. But I opted for a stranger talk. This talk is based on a conversation I had with my family. So the relationship I have with the Bitcoin community is hilarious. It's like I walk into this conference, and everyone's like, Jack, where's your mom? And I'm like, it's great. It's really great. It's great. But yeah, I had this really interesting conversation with my family. So now that Zap is more operating this Olympus thing, it's more of a business, and it operates with a balance sheet, and it has expectations of how it spends money. We have a lot of market risk of bringing you from fiat to Lightning and from Lightning to fiat. And my family has this finance background. So this is my Uncle Tom. I got my dad in here, my grandpa. I got an Auntie Joe. And I'm talking to him like, guys, I have this really unique business exposure that I don't know how to solve. It's really crazy. You are finance people. I'm a Bitcoin nerd, so I really need your help. And so this talk is titled Hedging the Chain. And so it's not so much about Zap the wallet. It's about a problem that we all have as Lightning engineers and an exposure that we'll all face in our businesses individually. And I wanted to try and break it down. It'll be a weirder talk, and then propose a potential solution. So here's the problem. Everyone at this conference uses the blockchain a lot, right? Okay, more specifically, using Lightning, opening and closing channels requires using the Bitcoin blockchain, okay? And as a business, this is actually a more complicated problem than I think anyone gives it credit for. So we have this like Bitcoin stack, and for some of you, this is gonna be super familiar. For others newer to Lightning and to Bitcoin, maybe this is cool. So you've got the blockchain down low, Lightning on top, and then maybe the application layer where Zap sits, right? And you have this image of Alice and Bob, and they sit on top of the blockchain of my white little squares. And there's lots of Alice and Bobs, and they're doing a lot of activity on Lightning, and they're coming on Lightning, and they're coming off of Lightning, and there's inherent cost to actually using the blockchain for all of these use cases, right? So everyone at this conference uses the blockchain a lot, right? Thumbs up emoji, right? Okay, cool. Now the problem is that using the blockchain costs money, okay? So I'm telling my Auntie Joe, I'm like, Auntie Joe, I have to use this thing all the time, because Zap will start opening channels for users. We're incurring this cost on behalf of other people. My job is to make sure that you guys can use Lightning in whichever way you see best fit and that your experience is great, and that's all I care about. And so I incur costs of using this blockchain, and Auntie Joe's like, what? I thought you guys are innovative and you're like solving things and everything's free and fast. She said, well, how much is it? How about you go to the conference, whoever runs the blockchain, buy them a beer, tell them how cool and pretty your wallet is, and try and get it for free. And I said, you know, Auntie Joe, that's just not how it works. Not only does no one actually run the blockchain, but I don't even know how much it costs. It varies, right? Some days it's less than $1 to open a channel. Some days it's $50 to open a channel. And there's time preferences baked in there. And so, Auntie Joe, it's not that simple, and it's far more complex than just baking in a credit card spread into my margins, right? It's really, really complicated. The reason for that is, let's say we have a block, and you know, my artist skills, we have this white square. So a block has these parameters, right? Like, it's limited in size and in weight, and then even cooler than that, is that it has to find a hash below a given target, right? So I can't say, Auntie Joe, go sign up for AWS, slap your debit card down, and get me more blocks because these ones are full and they're getting really expensive. Blocks are really scarce in their own unique way, right? You can't just create more blocks, or I can't find a cheaper way to get into a block. A block has its own characteristics which almost make it a commodity within itself, okay? So space in a block, in a really weird way, is scarce, and it's unique, and it's defined. And space in a block is a commodity. And that's like, whoa, like that's weird. I thought Bitcoin was a commodity. I thought gold was a commodity. Now space in a block is a commodity. I'm getting all Andrew DeSantis on here on stage. That's crazy. And so if space in a block is a commodity, then there is a market for space in a block, right? And this isn't a new idea. We call this the Bitcoin fee market, right? And that we know that space in a block or paying for on-chain activity, there's incurred costs, and sometimes that cost varies, and I'm talking about this now, right? And so here, this is not a shitcoin chart. This is the USD Bitcoin fee chart, and this is the Bitcoin fee chart in Sats. Now, this is crazy, right? Ignore the numbers on the bottom and on the side. Look at the volatility that's going on here. I'm a business. I have expected costs to run, and you telling me that one day that's low and the next day it's through the roof? What am I supposed to do about that? That's crazy. That's crazy. If fees spike and my expected cost is $1,000 a month and I wake up and it goes to $100,000 a month because someone decided to start paying 1,000 sat per byte transactions, well, fuck, I'm broke, right? Like, what am I supposed to do about that? That's really tough. That's really, really tough. So as a Lightning business, I think Lightning has done a great job of incentivizing people to run more full nodes. There's a lot more businesses, like in this conference, that are building on top of Bitcoin again, and it's fantastic. So what role do all of us play in this market of space inside of a block? We're buyers, right? We're the buy side. We're constantly bidding for space in a block, okay? So what's really interesting, and this is a key point, is as a Bitcoin business, so even it doesn't have to be Lightning, right? Coinbase, Cash App, a lot of these businesses pay for your withdrawal fees. They have expected costs to give you an experience. And we're all inherently short Bitcoin fees. And this is like word salad in market and finance. What all this really means is that when Bitcoin fees go up, like we're really not happy, right? It hurts our pockets and it's not great, okay? And so every business that uses the blockchain is inherently short Bitcoin fees. And it's tough, right? If you think about all the businesses prior to Lightning that were inherently short blockchain fees that operated, all of them signed the New York agreement, the SegWit 2x agreement, right? Is they had this time preference to reduce their costs of operating on top of the blockchain. And it was really painful for them, and it interrupted their relationship with their users. So this is a really, really, really important point. But if you pause for a second, like just hold the phone, we all believe in Bitcoin's supply cap, right? We all believe in this hard money, Bitcoin maximalist, 21 million, and that's it. Well, then we all believe that Bitcoin's fees must rise too, and that we're all expecting really inherent volatility in this fee market, right? Does that make sense? So this is me in the mirror. I'm like inherently short fees, so Zap has an operating cost of opening channels for users, managing its UTXOs. I have to understand that channels can close at any point, and there's nothing I can do about that. But I also think fees should go up a lot, and that there should be volatility in a fee market. So, well, shoot, I kind of am contradicting myself here, okay? So it's kind of a problem. But we aren't the only ones with financial exposure that run a business, right? I think every business has financial exposure. And traditionally in capital markets, how this is solved is through derivatives, these financial products. And so derivative instruments are financial contracts that depend on another financial asset, like typically a future, like BitMEX operates derivatives, right? And traditionally an index. But skip all the finance stuff. Why they're really, really important is because they're used to hedge financial exposure, okay? So let me give you an example that everyone can relate to or at least understand. So corn farmers have financial exposure because they're inherently long corn. Their assumption is that if they grow corn, that people will buy it for more than they grew it for, right? Okay? So they short corn futures, right? And let's walk through this. So a corn farmer has 100 bushels of corn, and the corn farmer is expecting to sell that corn at $1 a pop, okay? So they would put a short on corn futures at $1, right? And so how this works is that if the price of corn goes up, their short position of the downside of corn futures, it's going to lose money, but the bushels of corn got more valuable, right? Now, if the price of corn crashes, which happens, their bushels of corn aren't very valuable, but their short futures position is able to compensate for the money lost of growing corn that they're selling at a loss, right? And so this is what we call in markets a hedge, and this is how derivatives are traditionally used. And now the corn farmer has crossed himself out of any market exposure that can happen. He can safely grow corn without having a concern of whether the price of corn is going to be enough for him to pay rent or buy food, right? Okay. So derivative contracts are used to hedge exposure. It's a very important point. And in Bitcoin, we have, like Zap and Olympus, I have really unique financial exposure, right? There isn't a CME contract for me to hedge my channel opening exposure, right? There's nothing like that. There are baked in financial exposures into Bitcoin that are really unique, okay? So if we take this corn farmer and let's just do a little plug and play. So let's just put Zap there, okay? So Zap, let's say for simplicity's sake, I'm expecting to spend $1,000 a month opening channels for users, and a lot of this is time preference. Sometimes I need to get in specific blocks, or I think in LND it's a 48-hour time window before it's wiped, okay? So I have this expected cost. So what I would do is I would long on-chain fee futures, right? Because my expectation is that opening these channels, the fees aren't going to go to the moon and make me broke, right? And so what would happen is that if on-chain fees, the cost to use the blockchain, goes up, well, shoot, my expected $1,000 a month now may be $10,000 a month, and I'm eating microwavable ramen or whatever, right? But my long on-chain fee future is able to compensate me for that, right? So now my operations as a business, as a Lightning business, goes up, but I'm compensated by my futures position hedge, right? And in the vice versa, if fees go down, I have no problem losing money on my on-chain fee future because my operational costs are going to go down, right? Fees are cheaper, and now it's cheaper for me. It's not $1,000 a month. Now it's only $500 a month, and I have no problem losing money on the future because I'm making money on fees going down, right? And so Zap is inherently short fees. All of us as Lightning builders, you've got whether you're a wallet that uses autopilot, whether you're a business that's planning on opening channels for others, whether you're an exchange, right? Exchanges soak in a lot of on-chain Bitcoin blockchain costs, whether you're Cash App and you're paying for users to withdraw. We all are inherently short Bitcoin fees, and we have this financial exposure, which today hasn't really amounted to much because the fee market doesn't really exist, right? I mean, it does to a sense, but it's not there yet. But who's the other side? So if I'm inherently short on-chain fees, who's inherently long on-chain fees? Who takes the other side of the exposure? It's this guy. It's this little cartoon fella. It's the Bitcoin miner, right? Because we all know Bitcoin's controlled supply, the block reward halvings, and they decline and they work their way to zero, right? So if I'm a miner, I know that there's going to be a day where I mine a block and I don't get a block reward, really, or it's very small, right? So I am increasingly exposed to fees. Fees have to go up for me to run my business. If I'm a miner and some genius developer comes up with a way to cut fees and reduce fees for a really long time, well, goddamn, the halving is in 6 months or so, right? And if fees are going to stay low, how am I going to run operationally? So as a miner, I am inherently long on-chain fees. I'm the opposite of Zap, right? So a miner would expect $1,000 a month for on-chain fee profits, right? And so what they would do is they would short on-chain fee futures. So let's walk through this again. So if fees go up, a miner's like, fuck yes, right? I'm getting more money. I collect those fees, and I'm happy about it. So I have no problem paying a premium and losing on my short on-chain fee future because the fees that users are paying are going up, and I'm making money, right? Now, if there's technical innovation, which miners are frequently afraid of, they weren't very fond of SegWit, right? And fees are suppressed, and exchanges and wallets batch and manage UTXOs successfully, they would need to put on a short to ensure that if fees go to the downside, that they still are getting paid and can run their business operationally because the expected profit of $1,000 a month may not be hit every single month, right? If block space is a commodity and there's a fee for block space, then there's inherent volatility in your month. Sometimes you make money, sometimes fees will be lower, right? Okay? So this is a block digest picture. So all of us in the Bitcoin community, especially building on Lightning, we're inherently short these on-chain fees to get our users set up and onto Lightning, okay? And these miners are inherently long. So we have a natural two-sided market. I would like to long a Bitcoin on-chain fee future, and a miner would like to short it, right? And we have a really natural two-sided market. So the way I want to end it is that we saw with SegWit 2x, all of the businesses that operated on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, they really had a divorced relationship with their user base, and it was really sad to watch. And the reason is because their economic exposure to run their business on top of Bitcoin was not in their control, right? And they were very pressured to do whatever they could to make sure their business made sense. And now that we have this second wave of businesses that are building on top of Bitcoin and building on top of Lightning, I really, really, really think we can be more responsible about understanding our economic exposures and building more complex derivatives. Like if Zap is going to have 1 million users, I have to know that when I'm opening channels for these users and doing fancy things, that my on-chain fee cost isn't going to blow my business out and put me out of business. I have to know that my operating cost isn't going to go from $1,000 a month to $100,000 a month, right? So I really, really think that we can have better tools in SegWit 2x, this stuff, if we have a more mature marketplace. So I think we need a liquid on-chain fee derivatives market for a lot of Lightning businesses and Bitcoin businesses to scale responsibly. For me, I have a bias because I'm doing this fiat to Lightning thing, and I have a lot of these operation costs and exposures that are really important. And I need this, right? If we are going to scale Bitcoin and have people using the blockchain frequently, businesses need this. It is an absolute demand. I can't have my balance sheet exposed. No one can have their balance sheet exposed. So I would like to see this happen. I know there's people in the audience that run exchanges. I know, your traditional futures, BitMEX, perpetual swap is cool. But if, we can get some on-chain fee futures, I think Bitcoin businesses can scale more responsibly. So, yeah, weird talk, but thank you for having me. Jack Maller's on Twitter. Hit me up at any point. Thank you, guys.